Damien Vance was the epitome of success. In his early 30s, he was the owner of Vance Enterprises, a multi-million-dollar tech company that had revolutionized the world of artificial intelligence. His towering figure, with sharp cheekbones, piercing blue eyes, and an ever-present air of confidence, made him a magnetic personality both in boardrooms and in social circles. His luxurious penthouse overlooked the skyline of Silvergate City, a bustling metropolis where ambition and treachery walked hand in hand. But behind every great man, there's a woman, sometimes one with a dagger hidden behind her smile. Vanessa Crowe was beautiful, cunning, and dangerously ambitious. Her emerald green eyes glinted with mischief, her cascading black hair a veil for the darkness she harbored within. She had entered Damien's life 2 years ago, disguised as a loving partner who supported his every endeavor. Little did he know, Vanessa's affection was a mask concealing her hunger for power. Vanessa's plan began with subtle suggestions. "Damien," she purred one evening, tracing her fingers along his arm, "why don't you let me help you with some of the company finances? You're always so stressed about it." Damien trusted her. After all, Vanessa had been by his side through many challenges. He granted her access to confidential accounts, documents, and plans. For months, she siphoned funds and created a trail of evidence leading back to him. It happened on a crisp winter morning. Damien awoke to the sound of fists pounding on his front door. Before he could reach it, the door burst open, and officers in dark uniforms stormed in, guns drawn. "Damien Vance," the lead officer announced, "you are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy." "Fraud?" Damien stammered, bewildered. "This has to be a mistake." But the evidence was damning. Forged documents, secret accounts in his name, and a witness who testified against him. Vanessa sat quietly in the courtroom during his trial, her face a mask of sorrow, while Damien's world crumbled. She had paid off a key employee to testify that Damien was the mastermind behind the scheme. The jury delivered a guilty verdict. The judge's gavel slammed down, sentencing Damien to 5 years in Ironclad Prison, a notorious facility known for its violence and despair. Ironclad Prison was a fortress of misery. The walls were high and cold, the air thick with tension. Damien was thrust into a world of hardened criminals, where survival required more than wealth or charm. His designer clothes were replaced by a tattered orange jumpsuit, his meals reduced to watery gruel. The first week was hell. Fights broke out in the yard, and Damien quickly became a target. One day, a burly inmate named Marcus, with tattoos covering every inch of his arms, cornered him in the mess hall. "Rich boy," Marcus sneered. "Think you're better than us?" Damien didn't fight back as Marcus threw the first punch, sending him sprawling to the ground. But that beating became a turning point. As he lay on the cold concrete floor, blood dripping from his split lip, Damien vowed he would never be a victim again. Damien sought out a man named Victor, an older inmate with a reputation as a fierce fighter and an expert in survival tactics. Victor was lean and wiry, with gray streaks in his hair and eyes that had seen too much. "Why should I help you?" Victor asked, unimpressed. "Because," Damien said, his voice steady despite the pain, "I need to change. And when I get out of here, I'm going to destroy the people who put me here." Victor smirked. "Revenge, huh? That's a language I understand." Under Victor's brutal guidance, Damien learned how to fight, how to think like a predator, and how to adapt to the harsh prison environment. He spent hours in the gym, turning his once lean frame into a fortress of muscle. He learned patience and strategy, biding his time as he pieced together the details of Vanessa's betrayal. By his second year in Ironclad Prison, Damien Vance had become a man transformed. His once boyish face was now hardened, his body a chiseled machine of muscle, and his mind sharper than ever. The other inmates had grown to respect him, and even the guards treated him warily. But the fire inside him burned not just for survival, it burned for revenge. One fateful day, while cleaning out the prison library as part of his work assignment, Damien came across a familiar name in an old newspaper clipping stuffed into a book. The headline read, "Vanessa Crowe joins forces with global tech mogul in billion-dollar deal." His heart pounded as he scanned the article. Vanessa had sold the software patents he had developed, presenting them as her own. The betrayal ran even deeper than he had imagined. She hadn't just taken his money, she had stolen his legacy. Damien couldn't let it end there. His rage simmered as he began piecing together the conspiracy against him. His breakthrough came from an unlikely source, an inmate named Jonas, a former corporate investigator who had been imprisoned for taking bribes. Jonas was a wiry man with thick glasses and a penchant for solving puzzles. "You're telling me your girlfriend framed you?" Jonas said, raising an eyebrow. "And now she's out there living the high life?" "Exactly," Damien growled. Jonas smirked. "I like a good mystery. Let's dig." Using what resources they could muster, smuggled phones, old newspapers, and Jonas's network of prison contacts, they uncovered a trail of deceit. Vanessa had partnered with corrupt board members from Damien's company to orchestrate his downfall. She'd paid bribes, falsified documents, and ensured that every move pointed back to Damien. The final piece came when Jonas handed Damien a grainy photograph of Vanessa dining with the very employee who had testified against him. "This is it," Damien said, his voice cold and steady. "This is the proof I needed." From that day, Damien's training became relentless. He pushed his body to its limits and owned his mind, preparing for the moment he would confront Vanessa. Every punch, every rep, every sleepless night was fueled by the vision of her face when he exposed the truth. Victor watched him with quiet approval. "You've got the fire now, kid," he said one day as they sparred in the yard. "But don't let it consume you. Revenge can destroy a man if he's not careful." "It won't destroy me," Damien replied, his voice resolute. "It'll set me free." By the time Damien's 5th year came to an end, he was no longer the man who had walked into Ironclad. He had allies, knowledge, and most importantly, a plan. His release day was marked not by celebration, but by a cold determination. As he stepped out of the prison gates, the world seemed brighter, sharper, as if daring him to take it back. "Good luck, Vance," Victor said, shaking his hand. "Go get her." Damien nodded. "I will." Damien's first move was to gather resources. He tracked down Jonas's contact, a former private investigator named Charlotte Wolfe. Charlotte was a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 40s, with short auburn hair and a knack for uncovering hidden truths. "I've heard about you," Charlotte said, sizing him up. "You've got guts. But if you're serious about taking her down, you'll need more than muscle." Damien smirked. "I've got everything I need. I just need you to help me use it." Together, they began to expose Vanessa's network of corruption. Damien leaked the photograph of Vanessa with her accomplice to the media, planting seeds of doubt about her integrity. He hacked into her company's records, revealing irregularities that pointed to her theft. Bit by bit, he dismantled the empire she had built on his back. The final confrontation took place at a lavish gala Vanessa had organized to celebrate her latest success. The grand ballroom was filled with Silvergate's elite, their laughter and chatter echoing off the crystal chandeliers. Vanessa stood at the center, radiant in a crimson gown, basking in the adoration of her peers. But the moment she saw Damien stride into the room, her smile froze. "Miss me?" he said, his voice low and dangerous. Vanessa's mask of confidence cracked as Damien began to reveal the evidence he had gathered. Guests whispered and gasped as he played recordings, displayed photographs, and exposed documents that tied her to the conspiracy. "You thought you could destroy me," Damien said, stepping closer. "But you forgot one thing. I don't lose." Vanessa was arrested that night, her empire crumbling as her partners turned on her to save themselves. Damien watched as she was led away in handcuffs, a faint smile playing on his lips. But his victory was bittersweet. The years he had lost could never be regained, and the scars he carried were more than skin deep. Yet, as he walked out of the gala into the crisp night air, he felt something he hadn't in years: freedom. And with that, Damien Vance began the next chapter of his life, stronger and wiser, ready to rebuild what had been taken from him.